Middle East. Tell us how we think we got this tape.
Well, this tape was delivered this morning before the airstrikes began to the Al Jazeera reporter stationed in Kabul. Clearly it was shot ahead of time, and I think it's another example of how bin Laden continues to know how to get his message out, another clever use of propaganda and indeed television. The tape was shot by bin Laden's own camera crew, and the tape was delivered to Al Jazeera, the Arab language news network, all hours before the U.S. airstrikes on Afghanistan, airstrikes which bin Laden said were the first salvo in an American war against Islam.
Their aim is to wage war against Islam in the name of terror.
Laden was flanked by his key advisors. On the left, his chief spokesman. On the right, the Egyptian former pediatrician who has bin Laden's second in command, Dr. Ayman Zawahiri. And on the far right, Mohammed Atif, bin Laden's military commander. Bin Laden spoke of the attacks in New York and Washington and referred to them as acts of God.
This is where America was hit very badly in its own house, and the greatest buildings were destroyed, and we thank God. And America today is terrified from north to south, from east to west. We thank God for that.
Bin Laden said that all Muslims should be ready for jihad, holy war, and said that America was spreading lies in order to convince other Islamic countries to support the American-backed coalition.
It is very clear after this event that every Muslim should be ready. All the American officials, starting with the biggest infidel, Bush, they started this propaganda campaign against us and are even trying to incite other Muslim countries, part of our nation, against us.
Bin Laden, as he has been in the past, was careful not to claim responsibility for the attacks on the U.S., but did seek to justify them, saying that the suffering of Muslims and Palestinians has been longer and greater, and he wished that the hijackers would rest in paradise.
Our sons are being killed, our blood is being spilled, and our holy sites are being attacked, and nobody is raising their voice to condemn these attacks. When God gave a few of our pioneers the will, they carried out the destruction in America. They are like the stars, and I hope they are all going to paradise, where they will be heroes forever.
Bin Laden listed his grievances, the plight of the Palestinians and the U.S. support of Israel, the sanctions and bombing of Iraq, and the presence of the U.S. military forces in Saudi Arabia. And bin Laden said that Americans should fear future attacks.
But I say to America and its people, I swear by Almighty God, whoever lives in America will never have security before we have security in Palestine, and before the infidel armies leave all of the Islamic lands.
Bin Laden's chief aide, Dr. Ayman Zawahiri, issued a call to holy war.
I call on the Mujahideen, I call upon the sheikhs, I call upon all the believers. This is the battle of Islam.
Interestingly, Osama bin Laden took a page from George W. Bush's book saying that you were either part of this holy war or you were considered non-believer by he and his followers. One page he's not taking from the president's book. As Terry Moran was telling us before, you see the president and the vice president are staying separate for strategic reasons. It still appears, if you go by that tape, that bin Laden and his top command are remaining somewhere in hiding, but all together.
Talk to us a little about what you know of Mohammed Atif, his military commander, sometimes known by the name Abu Hafs.
Well, you know, they're an odd trio. Bin Laden is a son of a billionaire empire. Zawahiri is a former pediatrician. Abu Hafs, or Mohammed Atif, is a former Egyptian policeman who became an Egyptian radical, set up with a group which oddly rivaled Zawahiri's group, committing bombings and acts of terrorism, and then ultimately had to flee to Afghanistan, which was the only place he could find sanction from being a wanted criminal.
What do we think it means to be Mohammed
Atif?
No, I'm saying, what does it mean to be bin Laden's military commander?
Well, authorities say, and I think Tony Blair alluded to this the other day, that there's one man who seems to be the common thread between organizing the tactical ends of the attacks, including the embassy bombings, and then the bombing of the USS Cole, and then the attacks on Washington and the World Trade Center. And the common thread seems to be Mohammed Atif as the military commander, It's his job within those camps and the structure of bin Laden's own troops, not just the groups that he funds and trains, to get those operations together and see that they get off successfully.
Now, I've heard it said that that Ayman Zawahri, the Egyptian, and Osama bin Laden are in some respects each other's inspiration. It was Zawahri's group, Islamic Jihad in Egypt, responsible for the assassination of President Assad. How smart is he?
Well, he's an educated man. He comes from a upper middle class family. He, of course, was a respected figure before he became a radical in his own country. And it is not that bin Laden is the sun and the moon and that these are planets that circle around him. In this case, they are considered equals politically and, I guess, inspirationally.
Okay, John Miller, thanks very much. Trying to understand Osama bin Laden and what it is he's after requires us, not to mention the intelligence communities all over the world, to try to parse his words. So I want to introduce you first to two people who are going to help us do that. You've seen them on ABC before. They've been a wonderful assistance to us. First from New York University, Barney Rubin, who's the author of several books on Afghanistan. That's Barney Rubin on the right there. His book, The Search for Peace in Afghanistan, is one of the few books in the country that's really hard to get at the moment. And on the left is Professor Fawaz Jejes, who is originally from Lebanon and has just finished 2 years of field research on Islamic movements and the West as a MacArthur Fellow, which is an astonishingly high award that is given to very few people in the United States. What I'd like to do, gentlemen, is to show you, let me try, 4 sound bites of Osama bin Laden and ask you to help us understand what he thinks, what we think, what you think he really means. Here's the first one.
And when God gave a few Islamic pioneers the will, they carried out the destruction in America. They are like the stars. I hope they are all going to paradise. They will be our heroes forever.
Let me start with you, Professor Jejes, on the left there. This, of course, is a reference to the hijackers who attacked the trade towers and the Pentagon and those who died in the crash of the other flight in Pennsylvania. Do you believe this is a confession by bin Laden that he is responsible for those September 11th attacks?
Although bin Laden, by the way, acknowledges the culpability of the Arab and Muslim identity of the perpetrators, he does not make an explicit confession. This is not a confession. In his own words, it's God's will. Although it's really implied in the statement that he basically respects and honors the perpetrators and he views them as heroes and martyrs. But no, it's not an explicit confession in the overall sense of the word.
Okay, and Barney Rubin, just because we're going to hear it so many times and have heard it so many times, we refer loosely now to Islamic jihad or a jihad conducted by Muslims. It has so many different meanings, does it not?
Well, it certainly does. Even today you heard both Osama bin Laden call for a jihad against America, and you heard the Taliban ambassador in Pakistan call for jihad against America, but they mean very different things by that. Osama bin Laden is calling on all Muslims to rise up and attack Americans around the world, including and especially on the territory of the United States. What the Taliban are talking about is something really much more limited. They feel that they and their Muslim people have been attacked by America, and therefore they will fight the United States in Afghanistan as they fought the Soviet Union. That's a more traditional, really defensive notion of jihad than the type of expansive, radical idea that Osama bin Laden is talking about.
Okay, here's the second soundbite from Mr. bin Laden.
But I say to America and its people, I swear by Almighty God, America and whoever lives in America will not dream of security before it becomes a fact in Palestine and before all the infidel armies leave the Islamic lands.
Okay, let me go again to you, Professor Jejes. What are the demands here? Why does he keep mentioning Palestine? Does he really even care about the Palestinians that we know of?
I mean, let me put it this way. This is a direct threat against the United States, that unless the United States leaves the holy places in Saudi Arabia, and unless a solution is found to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, the United States will continue to be a target. What the statement really shows is that the two most important issues on bin Laden's agendas are basically the holy places in Saudi Arabia and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. But let me add a qualification here, it's just a historical footnote. When Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and when the United States, by the way, launched its military campaign against Saddam Hussein, he made a similar speech He called for jihad against the United States, and he made the argument that Iraq was in Kuwait to liberate Palestine, not to occupy Kuwait itself. So if we contextualize Osama bin Laden's statement in a historical perspective, we realize that the Arab-Israeli conflict plays big in the Arab and Muslim political imagination. That is really, it's an existential issue in the Arab and Muslim world.
Well, Professor Rubin, jihad has come to have chilling connotations for all of us. How seriously do you think we should take this simple expression, jihad?
Well, I don't think the word jihad is the issue here. The issue is that Osama bin Laden is issuing threats against the United States, whatever word he may be using it for. I don't think that the concept of jihad in Islam, the way most Muslims interpret it, is a threat. The problem is his radical political, not so much as even his political agenda, but the incredibly violent and indiscriminate methods of terror that he uses to advance it. This is not, we shouldn't defame a religion by calling it by that name, even if he uses the religion's terms.
Now, when he uses the phrase infidels in the Holy Land, he's specifically, I gather, talking about Saudi Arabia,
Absolutely.
where the holy places of Mecca and Medina are located. Is he talking about anywhere else?
Well, he uses I believe he uses the term Balad al-Haramain, which means the country of the two sanctuaries, the two holy places, Mecca and Medina, which is his term for what we call Saudi Arabia. He wouldn't use that term Saudi Arabia because he doesn't recognize the legitimacy of the dynasty of Ibn Saud.
Professor Geges, how much pressure does someone like Osama bin Laden put on the people of Saudi Arabia? Saudi Arabia is a country where a very severe, some would even argue fairly extreme form of Islam is the rule of law by the government.
I just returned from the Middle East, by the way, on Wednesday morning, and it seems to me that bin Laden's message resonates, in particular among the Saudi youth in Saudi Arabia itself. It seems to me that, there is under the surface in Saudi Arabia a great deal of social upheaval. And here, Peter, I want to add one critical footnote. It seems to me in the last 1 year or so, the pattern of recruitment on the part of Osama bin Laden shifted from the mainstream Arab countries and Pakistan and Afghanistan into the Gulf countries. The last time bin Laden was shown publicly, hundreds of foot soldiers from the Gulf countries were seen all over Osama bin Laden. And this really somehow at least sheds light on the social upheaval under the surface in Saudi Arabia. And this is why the government in Saudi Arabia has been extremely ambivalent about committing itself fully to the American campaign against terrorism.
Now, are you suggesting here that the young, particularly Arab populations in the Gulf countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Bahrain, Yemen, Oman, are more susceptible to his recruitment because of the disparities in life between them and their leadership?
Well, absolutely, but I think what we need to understand is that somehow there are certain issues which resonate in the Muslim political imagination, in particular in the Gulf. It seems to me that the American military presence in the Holy Lands in Saudi Arabia and the explosive and polarized Palestinian-Israeli conflict really serve, as you may say, as breeding ground for extremism and for dissidency throughout the Gulf. And what's really worrying, by the way, if the FBI tentative list of the perpetrators is accurate, it shows that a high and a large number of the perpetrators really come from Saudi Arabia. And this tallies with the facts of the changing pattern of recruitment vis-a-vis foot soldiers on the part of Osama bin Laden in the last 1 year or so.
All right, let me now show you one more soundbite from bin Laden himself, which I think will may speak volumes, you will find, about the Middle East as a whole.
Those, the least I can say about them, that they are hypocrites. They followed the infidels. They were with the oppressor against the oppressed. They were with the oppressor against the innocent children. God will punish them, and they will get what they deserve.
So, who's he talking about? The leaders of Egypt?
Well, absolutely. I mean,
Saudi Arabia?
It seems to me here in the United States we are fascinated by saying, listen, I mean, the target of Osama bin Laden is basically American democracy and American freedom. I think this is rubbish. The target of Osama bin Laden is basically the existing political regimes in the Arab world, in particular in Saudi Arabia, in the Gulf, and in Egypt. Of course, when he targets the United States, he hits two birds in one stone, because to his mind, by the way, that the United States is basically sustains and shelters and supports the existing political regimes in the Arab world.
Professor Rubin, it is sometimes suggested that one of the dilemmas for the Islamic world at the moment is that Islam is in some respects at war with itself. Those who wish to be part of modern development and those who feel they've lost control and want to take it backwards. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it's a vast oversimplification, which unfortunately is much too flattering to us and oversimplifies our complex relationship with the Muslim world. I think first, westernization in the Muslim world has not been associated so much with democracy and equality. It's been associated with corrupt privilege, and it's been upper classes and the wealthy who have had access to that westernization, and that is why Islam, rather than Western ideas of democracy and so on, has become the vernacular for talking about liberation and equality, although certainly not democracy. I think that the Muslim world does not see the United States as standing for democracy in their own countries, because we ask the government sometimes to quell newspapers and television stations that are too outspoken against us. We support regimes that are repressive, and the fact is, if those governments were more democratic, they would very likely be more anti-American, because that is the feeling of public opinion in those countries.
And you describe a long campaign to change things. Final question, if I may, briefly answer, if I may, Professor Zhejes. You've just come back from the Middle East, as you said. There are other organizations in the region which either wish to take on Israel or the United States, or a combination thereof. Hamas in the Palestinian territories, Hezbollah in Lebanon, which has become a greater part of the political establishment there. Are any of them ever inclined to join forces with bin Laden?
Well, it seems to me that the question is, why does Osama bin Laden succeed in really recruiting hundreds and thousands of foot soldiers? And the question that he does, because somehow anti-Americanism has become deeply embedded in Arab political culture and among certain intellectual circles and opinion makers. There is an arsenal of grievances against the United States, and unfortunately the reason why Osama bin Laden's message resonates among the Arab and Muslim youth, because of this arsenal of accumulated grievances. This is in no way to justify or rationalize this hideous act against the United States, but one has to understand the underlying reasons and the underlying causes for people like Osama bin Laden, who succeed in recruiting thousands of Arab and Muslims who are willing to commit suicide and kill tens of thousands of Americans in the process.
Barney Rubin and Fawaz Zhejes, thank you both very much for contributing to my, and I hope others' understanding of this. Thank you both very much. We'll come back in a moment to continue with the investigation of what happened on September the 11th. That investigation continues full bore. Brian Ross, our chief investigative reporter, will have an analysis.
An ABC News special, America Fights Back, continues after this message and a word from our ABC stations.
Introducing Taco Bell's new handheld, the Chicken Quesadilla. Equipped with 3 cheeses and marinated all-white meat chicken, it supports both lunch and dinner platforms. Download the new CQ today and see how it feels to think outside the bun.
In a military prison, one man demands their obedience. Bend it. The other commands their loyalty.
I'm taking command of your prison.
Robert Redford, James Gandolfini, The Last Castle. Rated R. Starts Friday, October 19th.
Here's something really fantastic you can do with a penny.
Right, John. When you rent to own anything at Rent-A-Center, you get your first week for just 1 cent.
See? Really amazing.
Yep, and in most cases, we deliver the same day. Your first week's a penny when the second week's paid, and Rent-A-Center makes it easy.
Really easy.
But hurry, call the store nearest you at 1-800-205-2005.
Do it now.
Call 1-800-205-2005 and get your first week for 1 cent.
At Rent-A-Center. Really?
ABC Tonight, 2 of television's best on one night.
No!
Next.
I'm giving you the plan.
I'm giving you the plan.
It's the season's #1 new drama.
This is what you're in the middle of, Sydney. And it is long-term.
Alias.
I'm sitting on a ticking nuclear bomb!
At 10/9 Central.
My ex-wife is trying to rob me.
The guy's my bookie.
It's the Emmy-winning drama, The Practice.
I'd settle.
I'll kill her first.
Are you threatening her life?
An all-new Alias, followed by an all-new Practice. It all starts next on ABC. Monday, the Lions host the Rams on Monday Night Football. Then if you think those guys are tough, try making Regis laugh. It's Millionaires Comedy Edition with Kathy Griffin, Dennis Leary, Kevin Nealon, Robin Quivers, and more. The toughest night on television. Starts Monday at 6 on ABC.
As America fights back, stay with ABC News. Up-to-the-minute coverage. New details as they break. For all you need to know, turn to ABC News.
Look!
Well, that's an angel throwing a curveball.
We are all born dreamers. At Key, we'll bring together the right people with the right resources to help you achieve anything, even a PhD.
Look.
That's an angel throwing a curveball.
Key, achieve anything.
Hi, I'm Stephen Curtis Chapman. My family is very important to me, and that's why I'm excited about a new radio station that's safe for the whole family. It's called The Fish, and it's at 104.1 FM.
This is your time. This is your dad.
The Fish plays positive and uplifting music that encourages your family, and you won't have to worry about hearing offensive lyrics.
Today's Christian music, 24 hours a day. Try it. The new 104.1, The Fish.
This is K2, the breaking news station. This ABC News special, America Fights Back, continues once again from ABC News World Headquarters in New York. Peter Jennings.
Ever since the attacks on the United States on September the 11th, our investigative unit has been going night and day trying to follow, and in some cases is ahead, as best we can tell, of the official investigation of what actually happened and who was behind it. We're joined now by ABC's Brian Ross. Today doesn't eclipse this investigation by any means. It may just push it off the page for a day. So what's going on?
Well, Peter, the single most important development in the investigation so far is the evidence that links the 19 dead hijackers to Osama bin Laden, and in particular to a key lieutenant, making it very much a family affair. These are pictures taken earlier this year at a wedding, the marriage of one of Osama bin Laden's sons. Now, authorities have told ABC News the beaming father of the bride had one of the principal operational roles in planning the September 11th attacks. His name is Mohammed Atef, already under indictment in the bombing of American embassies in Africa, and the man British Prime Minister Blair was talking about earlier this week.
One of bin Laden's closest lieutenants has said clearly that he helped with the planning of the 11th of September attacks and has admitted the involvement of the Al-QAEDA organization.
In fact, Atef could be seen today at the edge of the picture in bin Laden's most recent taped appearance. His intercepted communications, claiming credit, are considered crucial evidence and crucial blunders from the man who is bin Laden's director of military planning.
He's a man in charge of the security operations, and also he's a conceptualizer. He basically plans and orders military operations, in particular, by the way, earth-shattering operations like the one in New York and Washington and the one in Africa and Yemen.
The other strong bin Laden connection involves the fact that 3, and ABC News has been told maybe as many as 5, of the dead hijackers trained in bin Laden training camps in Afghanistan. And one of them, Khalid al-Midhar, was identified as being involved in earlier attacks by bin Laden against U.S. interests.
Of the 3, one has also been identified as playing key roles in both the East African embassy attacks and the USS Cole attack.
In tracking how September 11th happened, there are 2 key witnesses in custody. One in London, the man authorities say helped to train the suicide pilots, and one man who was in custody 3 weeks before the attack. The man authorities say was supposed to have been the 20th hijacker, Zacharias Moussaoui, now being held in New York. There has been one big success in the investigation so far, thwarting the efforts of a follow-up suicide attack on the U.S. Embassy in Paris. And Peter, that investigation and the pattern of other bin Laden attacks has raised one big question. In almost every case, there's a Mr. Big who is on location and then leaves, doesn't sacrifice himself. So far, involving the attacks in New York and Washington, authorities have no idea who that Mr. Big was, if he exists, and if he does, where he is tonight.
Many thanks, Brian Ross. An update on the investigation. Since we have been on the air, according to the correspondent for Al Jazeera, the Arab television network, who is in Kabul, we had the astonishing scene earlier today of seeing him broadcast live during one of the attacks, or perhaps just after the first attack. He now says to his television network that a fourth attack on the capital, Kabul, has taken place this evening. Several planes, he reports, believed to be American and British, passed over the city and bombed military targets, his description, around Kabul itself. And he does say that Taliban forces on the ground managed to get off their anti-aircraft fire. Not missiles, he says, just simply anti-aircraft fire at the aircraft. So the attack on Kabul continues. We're now joined from Washington this evening by Senator Richard Shelby, the Republican who is the senior Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee. Thank you for joining us, Senator Shelby.
Thank you.
And let me just first of all tell you and the audience the results of an ABC News poll we've done today. It finds that 90% of the public supports the attacks today. That may not come as a surprise, but it is compared to 76% who supported the attacks at the beginning of the Gulf War more than a decade ago. More than 70% of Americans support using significant number of ground troops to capture or kill Osama bin Laden, and more than half of those Americans in this poll believe the action will increase the likelihood of more terrorist attacks against the U.S. Let me start, Senator Shelby, with that business of capturing or killing Osama bin Laden. The Secretary of Defense said today that Osama bin Laden was not a target today. Do you agree that that's a correct assessment? And if not, why not?
I believe that. I believe what Donald Rumsfeld said earlier. I saw his remarks. But would he be caught up in an attack? That's one thing. But to be the direct person we're trying to hit is another. I believe if we got him in an attack, that's part of being in war. But to just seek him out by himself would probably be a mistake.
Based on what you have heard today in briefings you received from the administration, do you think this mission is going well?
I think it's going well, but we have to remember, Peter, this is just the beginning. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take a lot of resolve, and it's going to go on. This is just the beginning.
Do you mean the broad-based attack against terrorism, or do you believe the military operation against targets in Afghanistan will continue?
Perhaps some of both, but the broad-based attack against terrorism has to go on. As President Bush has warned and told the American people, we're going to do what it takes to rid the world of terrorism. We have to, otherwise we're just waiting around for the next attack here.
Senator Shelby, you, I think more than any other politician, have said repeatedly that you believe another attack on the United States is imminent. I actually think you used that word on one occasion. Is that your gut talking, or do you know something the rest of us don't?
Well, I'm just going to say again that I believe that there will be another attack. I pray it won't be, but we have to be on alert. We don't know when it's going to come. Could it come tomorrow or the next day? Sure. It might be delayed, but it will come. There will be an answer, but we will be ready. I'll be a lot more. We're a lot more alert than we were on September 11th.
But what we're hearing here, sir, is your instinct, correct? Not necessarily intelligence information.
Well, I'm not going to talk about what I've been briefed on other than just say that I believe there will be an attack, but I don't know when, and I pray there won't be.
Now, Governor Tom Ridge starts his new job tomorrow as the head of Homeland Defense in the United States. Do you believe he currently has all the tools he needs and the authority he needs?
Absolutely not, but it is a good start. I believe that he needs statutory authority to carry out the job. Tom Ridge has got a lot of ability. He understands the system. He was a former member of Congress before he was governor. But I believe to give him the tools to do the job, it's going to take an act of Congress.
Thank you, Senator Shelby, very much.
Thank you.
He was the ranking member on the Senate Intelligence Committee. We're now joined by James Woolsey, who's the former director of the CIA. Nice to see you again, Mr. Woolsey. On the basis of what you have seen today, take us now inside intelligence. A lot of intelligence gathering tonight. Just tell us how it gets through ultimately to George Tenet, the current director of the CIA, and how it gets acted upon. What's the system?
Well, for these types of targets that are being hit, which are reasonably prominent military targets, gun emplacements, airports, radars and the like, technical intelligence is probably the main way you get that information from reconnaissance satellites, and to some extent, if they emit, radars from signals intelligence. And the real question is whether they've got them zeroed in close enough with the GPS coordinates, with the exact locational data that these standoff weapons can hit them, because it doesn't seem that we're using the kind of laser-guided ordnance that we used during the Gulf Gulf War, where one aircraft will keep a laser focused on a target, and the missile would ride or the bomb would ride the laser in. These are considerably more flexible weapons, but you have to get the actual locational data precisely right, and I guess we'll know tomorrow when we get the bomb damage assessment how accurate they were.
Okay, many thanks. Nice to see you again. James Woolsey, former director of the CIA. Now we have on the television Hassan Abdul Rahman, who is the Palestinian representative to the United States. He's on the phone from Miami. Mr. Rahman, can you hear me?
Yes.
As you know, we have not heard anything official today from the Palestinian Authority or from President Arafat himself. What do you think the official Palestinian position is on these attacks today?
Well, from the very beginning, Mr. Jennings, we condemned the attack against the United States. We expressed our shock and outrage at the crimes that they were committed against the American people and the American government. We expressed our readiness to join in any effort that we can participate in combating terrorism and punishing those who are responsible for those crimes. So this is our official position. This is the position of the Palestinian Authority and the PLO, and that's where we stand.
Do you believe that this attack on the Taliban in Afghanistan today and on the Afghanistan component of Osama bin Laden is a good thing?
Well, what we have said from the very beginning, that those who committed this crime on September 11 should be punished. And therefore, we believe that whoever, and if it's Osama bin Laden and there are enough evidence against him, he should be punished, yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Nice to hear from you this evening, Mr. Rahman, who's the Palestinian representative in the United States, Hassan Abdul Rahman. There is more news from around the world and from Afghanistan itself. Our broadcast will continue in just a moment.
America Fights Back will continue in a moment.
Here's something really fantastic you can do with a penny.
Right, John. When you rent to own anything at Rent-A-Center, you get your first week for just 1 cent.
See? Really amazing.
Yep, and in most cases, we deliver the same day. Your first week's a penny when the second week's paid, and Rent-A-Center makes it easy.
Really easy.
But hurry, call the store nearest you at 1-800-205-2005.
Do it now.
Call 1-800-205-2005 and get your first week for 1 cent.
At Rent-A-Center. Really?
In a military prison.
Take that man down.
He was their last hope.
I'm taking command of your prison.
Like hell you are. Robert Redford, James Gandolfini, The Last Castle, rated R. Starts Friday, October 19th.
We've been talking so much about reaction in the Muslim world and in the Arab world, and we heard today from the Iraqi government, which we hadn't heard from at the time of the attacks on the trade towers and on the Pentagon. But President Saddam Hussein said tonight that the U.S.-led military strikes on Afghanistan would destabilize the world and might expand to target other nations. And the leader of a Muslim group in Indonesia, or should I say a leader of an extremist Muslim group in Indonesia, Indonesia being the largest Muslim country in the world, has urged millions of Muslims to lay siege to the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta, which is the Indonesian capital, after these attacks began on Afghanistan today. He said at 5 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern Time, we will besiege the embassy. All Muslims should join us. That is Muhammad Razik told the Reuters news agency. So the Indonesian government tomorrow, if this turns out to be true, will indeed be tested. Let us not forget where this round began. This has been in the making for a very long period of time, but these attacks on the United States on the 11th have engaged the United States in this great struggle in a way that we've never been engaged before. So let us go back, as we get closer to the end of this broadcast, to Ground Zero in New York City, where the search operation goes on. ABC's Ned Potter.
Peter, we're just a few blocks north of what's called Ground Zero, where despite a bracing wind, the cranes and the workers go about the business of recovery. This afternoon, New York's Mayor Giuliani urged the rest of the city to go about its business, too.
New York, in light of what's going on today and what happened in New York on September 11,
If we can maintain a steady way of life, we'll be a great example to the rest of the country and the rest of the world.
And indeed, even though it's been a blustery day here, New York almost made a point of looking normal. This even though there is a vast 16-acre crime scene in the city's midst. The workers have hauled away 180,000 tons of debris, which may sound like a lot, but it's only about 15% of the total that needs to be moved. 4,687 people are still missing at last report, 403 confirmed dead. And even now, 3.5 weeks after the attack, fires still smolder amid the rubble as workers uncover them and expose them to oxygen. Still, despite warnings, New York is not in a lockdown. Ball games were played today, the airports were open, traffic moved.
In New York, the mayor has said that they're not going to close tunnels or bridges unless there's any specific threats. Again, I think that's absolutely the right balance.
But all around the area, there have been more and more funerals, more than anyone can keep up with. The fire department does not have enough people to help bury their brethren.
In mourning the loss of our 59 members,
Brian Murphy, full of life.
Back here at Ground Zero, Peter, the digging goes on. There may be 1.2 million tons of rubble ultimately to be removed. The last estimate is that the job may take 10 months, perhaps as much as 14. Peter?
Thanks very much, Ned Potter. So many names, so many families, so many connections. That whole business of 2 or 3 or 4 degrees of separation is down to 1 degree of separation between Americans and people in many other parts of the world and those who perished here on the 11th. And, of course, we wait to see tomorrow what damage has been done in Afghanistan. We're going to spend the last couple of minutes, therefore, talking to our National Security Correspondent John McCarthy, who is still at the Pentagon, where he's been since about this time last night, I think. John, first of all, let me just ask you about a late report from Reuters, which says that on Friday the U.S. military launched an advanced imaging spy satellite capable of tracking small groups of Afghans, even pack animals and campfires. Do you know anything about that at all?
I don't know about that report, Peter. The U.S. does have such a piece of technology. In fact, it has several different pieces of technology that can do that, but I am not aware of that report.
Okay, now what do we know about the current status of operations? It's now 9 o'clock in the evening Eastern time.
Well, the sun should be up in Afghanistan at this point. I would suspect that American air operations are going to stop while it is daylight. And when things get dark again, then of course the United States will go back into the business of bombing. But Peter, we do have some new images from the bombing campaign, which we can show you right now.
Okay.
It is already night on board American ships in the Arabian Sea. The command centers on each vessel are buzzing with activity. An F-18 roars off the deck into darkness. On another ship, a Tomahawk cruise missile is launched. It will take more than an hour to reach its target inside Afghanistan. In all, the United States and Britain will launch 50 cruise missiles. 25 strike aircraft from the carriers are joined by 15 heavy bombers coming from bases on land. There are a pair of B-2 stealth bombers flying all the way from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri. The targets, airfields, and radar at nearly every major city in Afghanistan, Taliban armored formations, and terrorist training camps.
It is important to go after air defense and Taliban aircraft. We have also targeted command facilities for those forces that we know support terrorist elements within Afghanistan and critical terrorist sites.
Plans call for 2 C-17 cargo planes to drop their loads of food and medicine into remote parts of Afghanistan while bombs are falling elsewhere. There are to be more food drops in the days to come. The bombing and the food drops are just part of a broader campaign.
The fact is, in this battle against terrorism, there is no silver bullet. There is no single thing that is going to suddenly make that threat disappear.
The U.S. may not have a silver bullet, but they do have something that they hope will be a powerful weapon. This is one of the food rations that is being dropped over Afghanistan. It is full of vegetarian meals. and the U.S. is dropping thousands of them, and they have dropped thousands of them over the last night, and they plan to drop many thousands more. So this may not be a silver bullet, but it is definitely part of the strategy and a weapon the U.S. is using.
Thanks very much, John McWethy at the Pentagon. And of course, hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions of Afghans need the food desperately. They were in trouble before this all started, and this may only have made it worse for them. Large numbers of Afghans on the move trying to get away from what is happening in Afghanistan tonight. But this attack continues. When dark comes again, it's about 6 o'clock in the morning now in Kabul and Islamabad. Actually, it's just coming up on 6 o'clock in the Pakistan capital, Islamabad, which is nothing more than a government town next to the city of Rawalpindi. And what has happened today is going to have very serious, enormous ramifications in all of those countries tomorrow. We will, of course, monitor this throughout the night. You can look at it all the time. There's an abundance of information at abcnews.com. And tomorrow morning on Good Morning America, one of the guests will be the Secretary of Defense, Mr. Rumsfeld. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'm Peter Jennings on behalf of ABC News. Good night.